Hey everyone, it's Mike with It's Pittsfield Tonight. I'm going to jump right into it. And this video I want to talk about a few specific things. I want to talk about North Street again, the new layout that we've seen on North Street, the bike lanes, the reduced to one lane and all that particular layout. The market, the economy, all that. That's a big one. A lot of things that are happening on the market that will greatly affect us. And the upcoming elections this coming year for mayor and city council. So I'm going to start with that. Let's start with North Street. And North Street, as you know, has the past couple of years underwent some massive changes. According to Mayor Tyre, even though she is the mayor, she's the department head of the city, she says this is Ricardo Morales', our commissioner of Department of Public Services. This is his baby. And North Street has been reduced to one lane. We've had these new bike lanes put in. They've changed it once already from the initial rollout, then they changed it again to this layout that we have now. And here's the thing with it. You can go up North Street, and I go up every day and I film. I got tired of posting the pictures and filming it, and I think all of you got tired of seeing it. But for every bicycle I see using the bike lane, I will see 5 or 6 more at the same time on the sidewalks, going the wrong way on the bike lanes against traffic, scooters coming out in the road. And that's because there's no enforcement, zero enforcement of those changes. I still see cars traveling down those bike lanes to get into the right lane to make turns. You see that a lot, which puts everybody at risk. It's a horrible layout. And I get that their vision is to, or Ricardo's vision, but it's Mayor Tyre's too, she's in charge. Maybe is to make it like a big city like Boston or something like that, but what they're failing to really accept is our downtown district is basically one strip, one street. That's what we have to work with here. I keep saying that. That's our prime real estate. Is that the best we've got? So, I mean, it's just amazing. That's the best idea we can come up with for this. But where I'm going with this is, being that we have a election season coming up, and this will be a mayoral election and city council election, that's what's most important to our politicians. That supersedes everything, is getting elected. So I think you're going to see, because of that, you will see changes coming to North Street. I totally believe that. If you were to look, I've asked a lot of people since these changes were implemented, right up till, I ask people every day, what do you think about North Street? 90%, if not more, can't stand it. They don't like it. They think it's confusing. They say, I don't see bicycles in the bike lanes. I see the majority of them on the sidewalks, same as I see. The scooters are an issue with a lot of people, again, not because they hate scooters, but because it's a free-for-all. There's no enforcement. So, you see young people, some of them very young, younger than you're supposed to be on those things, darting out in traffic, and it's dangerous. So I think because overwhelmingly that the public cannot stand it, the majority, you'll see changes. They're going to do something to try to win your votes and say, see, we fixed everything, and it'll be probably some temporary thing, and then they'll go back to some other disaster plan. But I think you'll see changes coming to North Street for that reason. I mean, that's usually how politics work. If you remember the last mayoral election, you had Mayor Tyre really pushing, she had banners put across North Street welcoming Wayfair, and that she created 300 jobs. Did that create 300 jobs, or was that a projected number that it never reached? Because if you look at Wayfair's stock, it's down, almost 90% from its high. And that's not good. Wayfair's business model was always kind of iffy to a lot of people on the market. And as many of you know, I'm a market junkie. I follow it. I day trade. And I trust a lot of the people I listen to on the market. I follow some of the big names, from Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett, right down to Jim Cramer and Jeremy Siegel and people like that. And I'm going to talk about Jeremy Siegel's interview yesterday, which was unbelievable. But so again, it's at campaign season, you're going to see these type of things. And I'm willing to bet that that happens, because that seems to be the biggest issue on people's minds when it comes to a lot of the changes that have been implemented in Pittsfield. And it's annoying to a lot of people, not because they're afraid of progress or anything, because it's a confusing layout. It doesn't make sense to many people. And again, the most important thing is nothing's enforced. And without enforcement, what's the point of it? So you reduce the traffic flow, you put in these bike lanes that people are still confused. I still see cars traveling in them to take a right. And then you see the majority of the bicycles still up on the sidewalks. And add scooters to that mix. And we were told at that press conference by Commissioner Morales that no, the scooters would not be kids using them for recreation. It would be adults using them for transportation, to grocery shop and go to work, and that they would be adhering and following the same rules that bicycles do. So, I mean, it is what it is. And speaking of those scooters, Bird is that close to being booted from the New York Stock Exchange. That close. So their stock, like everybody, I mean, the market's taken a hit based off of, a lot of the new monetary policies from the central banks. The Feds keep raising rates, and they're down to 31 cents a share. So keep an eye on that one. They're down, I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, they had a high of, I think, $11 maybe, somewhere in that range, and they're down to 31 cents. But, these campaign promises, I was going through, I save all the mailers I get during election seasons. And here's all the accomplishments that Mayor Tyre used in her last campaign. Fostering unprecedented job creation and growing our local economy. Hundreds of new jobs for Pittsfield residents. Cut taxes for income-eligible seniors and generated over $2 million in revenue growth. Expanded and hired more police officers. It just goes on and on with a bunch of stuff that we have, I think, the lowest amount of police officers we've had in I don't know how long, a long time. I don't know all the jobs she created and how she created it. But again, you never let the truth get in the way of a good campaign promise. And of course, the go-to slogan that everyone uses against their opponent is, "We can't afford to go back." And then all the endorsements. You have Pete White, Earl Persip, Peter Marchetti saying that they're supporting the mayor over their colleague at the time because they know as a city, we just can't afford to go backwards. Same stuff. You hear it it doesn't matter what the race is. I think we heard that in the DA's race this year. Can't afford to go backwards. So anyway, my opinion is that North Street is going to have massive change coming in some way because it's overwhelmingly disliked by the residents. So don't be tricked by that, people. Pay attention if that happens. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is the market. And specifically, when we're talking about companies like Wayfair and Bird, and I don't blame the mayor for that. Now, the thing with Bird e-scooters, as a company, they didn't have the best reputation to start with, due to the injuries from their product. We've come a long way. You look at how far we've come in the automobile industry, from seat belts to airbags, and then being surrounded by airbags and breakaway frames and everything that the insurance companies lobby for because they don't want to pay out on claims to make those vehicles safer. And, here we are pushing a product as a city because they partnered with them, something that you stand up on with no protection, and you're doing 15 miles an hour. And if you look at the stats for these things, they are dangerous. A lot of broken bones, a lot of head injuries, things like that. But the business model was never made sense to many people for a lot of reasons. Is that really the preferred way to travel? Now, they've targeted communities with college campuses and things like that, which does make a little more sense. But for a community like ours and the type of geography we have here, it never made sense. And it made North Street that much more confusing with kids coming flying out across the road. And that's where people get upset, because nobody wants to hit a kid on a scooter, and they are dangerous. So, but anyway, the other big thing is oil yesterday, and it's almost impossible to read the market anymore. But oil, for the first time in a long time, dropped below WTI, West Texas Intermediate, dropped below $80 a barrel, and that's huge. I mean, you're going to see continual decline at the pump unless somehow that turns around right away. But you're not really going to, where it really starts to benefit people is if we can get back down under that 280 mark. And until then, you're not going to really start seeing the benefit. Yes, every penny helps, believe me, but don't be celebrating, really, or feeling the ease till you get down to where it becomes affordable. The central bank keeps raising rates, and that's trying to curb inflation. But at the same time, some people are saying, like Jeremy Siegel's saying, they're over tightening with their fiscal policies, and it's going to push us into a recession if they don't ease back. Because you don't just have inflation on goods, you have wage inflation also. But wage inflation still hasn't caught up to overall inflation because wages were stagnant for so long, for decades. So, I mean, there's all that going on, which is putting a strain on the economy. If you remember during, I think it was last year or the year before, when they were touting the increase in home values, and everybody's saying, my taxes are going up, I can't afford this. And like Counselor Persip came out and said, this is a good thing, don't listen to people like me. I was saying that this is based off of inflation, and those home values are not going to hold. You're just being overtaxed. There's no benefit to the homeowner. And Counselor Persip and Counselor White really talked about how wonderful this was, and people were building equity in their homes. Well, we're already seeing, because home sales now, due to rates being up, are at a 20-year low, and you're seeing the values start to drop. And if the feds keep pushing in this direction, you're going to see a 10 to 15% drop in those homes. We still have a shortage, but as that market starts to tighten, there's less and less people that are eligible to buy. You're going to see the values drop and drop. So basically, you were overtaxed, exactly like I said. And again, I'm not a know-it-all. I didn't pull that out of thin air. I did my homework. I did followed the research on it. So there's a lot of coming that people need to prepare for. When I interviewed the last time our city council president, Peter Marchetti, when they were getting ready to approve the budget for the new fiscal year, and I said, talks of recession and all these things going on in the economy, fuel costs, are you taking any of that into consideration? And he flat out, it was a quick response from him. He said, no, I believe we need to stay the course where we're at. And I think you got to do your research on that. You have to. If they had looked at what was people like Jeremy Siegel, again, he's a professor of finance at the Wharton School of Finance. He's 50 years, I believe, he's been teaching this, and he's one of the most reputable people in the country, if not the world. Why not listen to those people who were telling you these things? We could have used some of this money that we had to offset other things, to lower the tax rate. Now, I'm certain also going into an election year, not only do I think you'll see changes come to North Street, you'll see them take ARPA funds, even though they're always against doing this, but to make it look like they're lowering taxes, especially if Mayor Tyer runs again. But even if she don't, I think whatever candidate she endorses will be probably an insider. And it'll be something along those lines where they'll say, see, we lowered taxes. And don't be fooled by all that, people. Do not be fooled for that. By that. Pay attention to all this going on. There's a lot that we need to work with here and need to get done. And it's not being done. You hear the campaign promises, but overall, they're just, little tiny Band-Aids right before an election. Don't fall for that. Anyway, that's my opinion on all that. I don't believe I have all the answers. I try not to come across as a know-it-all, but do your homework. And many of you did respond to the last video I did where I said I wanted to put a volunteer group together, like a city ambassador team, so we could go out and start engaging with those out there on the streets that are panhandling, that are homeless, and start engaging with people that actually need the help and assistance. Because believe me, I'm not against homeless people. I was one. And I know we call them the unsheltered. Some people call them houseless, which I think is funny because a house is a type of structure. That's what a house is. If you live in an apartment, you're houseless. But you're not homeless. And then we changed it to homelessness to be more PC. But I lived on the streets for 4 years and I was homeless. That's it. That's what it is. It is what it is. But many, I was overwhelmed by the amount of you. So I think we're going to be able to make that happen. A lot of people responded to that, and it's going to take volunteers to put like an ambassador street team together. And I'm going to have to reach out to some of our local organizations, maybe even ServiceNet, to see how we can work with them once we acquire this data, and we can work with them to help assist the right people get into the programs they need to get into, whether it be they simply are looking for housing because the rental market is becoming unobtainable, or what is it? Is it mental health issues? Is it substance issues? What is it? And that's the first step, is engaging as a community. And it's going to take volunteers, and I need as many of you as possible. And to the people who are so passionate about this, volunteer. Be part of it. I'm telling you, you'll feel good about it anyway. The next business tours I've got will be coming up soon. I'm excited about that. The bar tour, I'm way behind on this year, but a lot of our local bars are still struggling, and I definitely want to help. I mean, they're an important part of our community for, I know not everyone's pro bars, but they are, that's why they call them pubs. They were public houses. Bars and pubs, whatever you want to call them, are an important part of the community. They're gathering places where people see live entertainment, where they relax, get something to eat, to escape. And we need them. They're an important part of the community, and they're taxpayers. They're paying some of the highest tax rates in the state. So anyway, that is it for now. Stay involved, pay attention. Hopefully this didn't bore people with economic stuff, but pay attention and don't fall for empty campaign promises that they just throw Band-Aids on at the last minute, because I think we'll be facing that. We're only 6 months or so away from polling papers for the next election. So, and I will let everyone know what I'm going to do. So that is it for now. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, get involved, pay attention, and I'll catch you all in the next day or two.